The job of vice president remains today one of the most awkward in the city of Washington. I think it's gotten better. Walter Mondale told me that by 76, he was able to negotiate kind of almost like a memorandum of an understanding with Jimmy Carter. That if you can kind of carve out your role and negotiate specific duties based on your own interests and passions. I think it's gotten a little better, but I mean, constitutionally, it's about as thin as any officer of this nation in terms of, you open and gavel in the opening session of the Senate. And then, as they say, you are a heartbeat away from the presidency. I mean, you're in line to succeed, but that doesn't mean you share any of the responsibility. To the extent you have any real authority is only because the president shares it with you. I spend a lot of time around 18, 19, 20-year-olds in the classroom, and I teach a lot of political history. I would say if you look at any election, and one of the candidates is the vice president of the outgoing president, or someone very, very close to them, that's the campaign to watch because they have the hardest task. I mean, put yourself in their shoes. So you have all the proposals and promises that every campaign has running. And, the first cynic in the press says, if you've got all these good ideas, then why didn't you do them the last 4 years or 8 years? So you have to both stand on the record of the last 4 or 8 years and yet awkwardly somehow argue that you have more ideas, which are even better, but there's some reason why you didn't already do them if you thought about them now. And you also need to understand that outgoing presidents are strengths in some part of the country and weaknesses in others. And so how do you do all these things and win the enthusiastic endorsement of your president where you want it and get them to stay away, where you don't want it? It's extremely awkward, and there's no good answer. And Nixon had to do this in '60 with Eisenhower. More recently, Gore had to do it with Clinton in 2000. Hillary Clinton a little bit in 2016. Of course, she wasn't vice president, but she was Secretary of State and was very high-ranking and close to the administration. And I think often, if politics makes for strange bedfellows, as is often said, I think that's especially true when it comes to political legacies. Political fights are the most vicious when they're within the same family. You expect opposite political parties to attack each other. But when it comes to your own legacy, I think it's more common than not that a president of one party prefers to be succeeded by someone of the other party. And that seems like a very radical idea. But if you're succeeded by someone else of the other party, you will be attacked. And that will force your own party to come to your defense. If you're succeeded by someone in your own party, frequently all those good ideas they have mean you're going to be forgotten. And so it's almost better. One White House attorney once told me, people don't realize that an awful lot happens in this town for personal, selfish reasons. And as strange as this would sound, I would not be surprised one day, maybe 50 years from now, since it's taken this long to make sense of 1968, that actually Obama in some way might have preferred to be succeeded by Trump, because it would have forced his own party to come to his defense. The Clintons and Obamas have never liked each other, as far as we know, and we'll probably learn more about that one day. So as awkward as that sounds, when it comes to personal, selfish legacies, it begins to make a little more sense.
Wow, that is such an interesting point to me. Humphrey definitely had a very difficult job, but that's something I've never thought of, is a president would almost want the opposing party to succeed them for their own legacy because their party would back them. And I think it's a great point.
Well, and I'll make an even more radical one right now for 2024, that it would not surprise me, despite his public sayings to the contrary, including his speech the other day in Valley Forge, that it's better for President Biden's own legacy if he's going to lose, if he's not going to run again, perhaps to be succeeded by Trump. Because that will force Democrats who are not inclined to defend Biden to defend him. If he's succeeded by someone kind of on his left in the Democratic Party, he's going to be flushed down the tubes. I mean, he will be forgotten by history and forgotten by the Democratic Party. So believe me, when it comes to legacies, it's a very strange kind of twisted world. But and none of us knows sort of what's on the heart or in the mind of another person. But it's sometimes the issue goes deeper than what a politician is saying publicly in front of a microphone when it comes to legacies.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's something I've never thought of, and that's such an interesting point. But when it comes to Biden, I can't see him continuing another 4 years in kind of the state that he's in.
Well, I would say not controversial. I would say it's historical. And I would say actually, during Biden's own lifetime, he's probably aware of the fact that Harry Truman had to make the same decision in 1952 and that Lyndon Johnson had to make it in 1968, which is the even closer parallel. And in both cases, I would say March is the month to watch. And people say, oh, he could never wait that long. No, you have to understand it from his perspective, again, which is what I'm trying to tap into here. The moment you decide you're not going to run, you're a lame duck. You will get nothing else accomplished. Congress will not listen to you. Your own party will not listen to you. Your top people will all quit and turn to one of the challengers. The spotlight of the media will be on everyone but you the remainder of the years. So it is in your personal selfish interest to wait as long as possible. Johnson did March 31st. Harry Truman, I think, did March 29th, right after kind of New Hampshire. I think this is the window between now and then to watch. And like Truman and Johnson, the lesson here is that they changed their minds and decided not to run. They had to make up a reason. In Truman's case, it was, he was old. In Johnson, I think it was his health. He couldn't unite the country. I would not be surprised if Biden is aware of these and is even having people figure out how did they decide these, the timing, the format, televised, radio, and have those notes ready so he can really think about this. The moment he begins to doubt his own reelection, that was the inflection point, I think, for Truman and Johnson. And I don't know who is giving that kind of advice to Biden today other than the First Lady, but that is the key thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of ramblings, even within the Democratic Party, to kind of find a substitute. I don't think even the Democratic Party wants Biden to rerun. And I think they should look back at history, like you said, that when looking to rerun, when you're not really in a state to still be in office, that it ultimately works out better for your legacy to step aside and let someone else either step in your place from your own party or let the other party succeed you. So that's a very interesting point you make. March is the month to watch for.
The humiliation of not running is better than the worst humiliation of running and losing.
I think you're absolutely right.